Hello, hello. I'm Dr. Brian Curtice with Fossil Crates, and I'm here to talk about the 2022 Chewly Championship Round 2 matchups with two of my favorite people.
I'm Colin Boisvert. I'm a master's student here at Brigham Young University with the Museum of Paleontology.
And I'm Aiden Rouse, and I'm a freelance paleontologist here in the state of Florida.
And together, we're going to chat about some of our favorite round 2 matchups. Well, we're going to talk about all of them. We'll start off with the number 1 seed, the giant Spinosaurus, two-time finalist, two-time defeated by T-Rex, who's now retired. Spinosaurus is up against Torvosaurus tanneri, the wild, savage lizard, the apex predator in the Jurassic. Now, how they got here? Spinosaurus, unfortunately for our good friend, the lightweight chomp Utah Raptor, walked right through it, to no one's surprise. Torvosaurus had a much closer matchup, the closest in round 1, against his perennial nemesis, Saurophaganax. But Torvosaurus did come out on top by single digits, percentage-wise, and advanced to earn the right to take on this giant Spinosaur. Let's chat about these two combatants. Who wants to start us off?
I will take just real quick the first stab at the fact. All right, so we're dealing with this battle is going to be happening on firm ground. So already, as much as I love Spinosaurus, he's at a bit of a disadvantage because we know this is an animal that, based on its posture, is just, in this case, positioned a little bit lower to the ground, right? It's not quadrupedal, but its arms are hanging pretty close to the ground, right? Whereas Torvosaurus will have that slight height advantage of where its jaws sit at. And even though Spino's jaws are probably a little bit longer than Torvosaurus, right? If he can't get those jaws up, he's only maybe nibbling at the leg, which is definitely going to hurt. But all Torvo has to do is come down and he can slice in areas that maybe Spino won't be able exactly to get to.
And Torvosaurus's claws are actually longer and bigger than the Spinosaurus claws, which will surprise a lot of people.
I mean, this is the case of the famous Battle of the Long Snouts, because now that we know, Torvosaurus actually had a pretty long snout. And another thing that Torvosaurus has the advantage to Spinosaurus is that it has the one tooth design that has never failed for millions and millions of years, and that is a very blade-like serrated tooth. I mean, you hold up the tooth, it's comparatively as large as most Rex teeth are. I mean, it's a ginormous tooth. So it has bite power behind it, because why would it have a big tooth unless if it had a super strong bite? That root's all there for impact. So you combine that with a, dagger-like teeth. It's the best of both worlds, crushing power and slicing power. Plus, once you put that on an elongated skull, I mean, Spinosaurus has, that very long, narrow skull, but yet its teeth are conical. I actually held a Spinosaurus tooth today, and really the only thing that differs from that in a crocodile or your typical alligator crocodile tooth, it's just a little line. Again, not straight, but just this little line of where it has some cutting power. But you put that next to an animal like Torvosaurus, which has the best of every world, it's no competition.
And yet we have the size mismatch. Spinosaurus is pushing 50 feet long, and it is a big, heavy beast at roughly 8 tons or so, 16,000 pounds. We're offering Torvosaurus, still respectable in the 30-foot range, but it's half the weight, 5 tons tops. It's giving up 6,000 pounds, which is a lot. It's almost half its body weight again.
That's a very big thing. And I mean, it's all about agility, right? Spinosaurus has that tail, but that very long, paddle tail. But again, what is that used for? It doesn't serve you any good on solid land. It only does you good in the water.
Now, we've seen him use that tail before when he fought Allosaurus in 2020. Allosaurus had figured out a game plan to take everyone out with the bite and then run as fast as you can, let him bleed out. And that tail was able to do a sweep and put him on the ground. Even though it's got a tall neural spines, it still has a long reach and some good hip power in there. That's from my stance, but I'm a tail guy, so I'm always I'm chase tail all over the world.
And then I think maybe the one additional advantage which Spinosaurus might have over Torvosaurus is while both of these animals lived in environments that dealt with multiple apex predators of large sizes, right? Spinosaurus dealt with, large carcharodontosaurs, and so Torvosaurus may just seem a lot like that. And so therefore it might have, that instinctual memory, right, to deal with this aspect. However, at the same time, it may look at Torvosaurus and be like, why do you look like me but different? And so all I can say is it's going to be a very interesting matchup, and I can't wait to see what goes down.
And the other thing is, a big thing that we mentioned last year, Torvosaurus has raw megalosaurid power. Now, it could be argued that, your Spinosaurus are an off branch of that, that megalosaurid group, but still, Torvosaurus is as close as you get to that primal, rich, true generic theropod, power to it.
Yep, and we saw that in his match with Saurophaganax. He baited Saurophaganax in to the kind of fight he likes, which is up close, personal, slashing with those claws, chomping with those jaws, kicking with those toe claws. An unstoppable fury. And yet, because of the mass, what I'm concerned with in this battle is Spinosaurus. In some ways, to me, I'm envisioning it as this gigantic sea lion, one of those big elephant seals. And he just thrust his whole mass onto Torvosaurus. That's why we have weight classes for a reason, because weight can make all the difference. Well, as you said, Colin, I'm super excited to see this battle. I want to see how the votes go.
It's coming back. It's definitely coming back from a very tough year against Tyranitin last year, where it got kicked out in the first round.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, we don't.
But Tyranitin, so good.
Great animal, can't argue that, but great name too. The other match in the Carnivore semifinals or round 2 is number 2, Giganotosaurus or Giganotosaurus. We'll go back to that someday. But Giganotosaurus is throwing down, and he also was defeated twice by T-Rex in the past. And in this very round, he's never seen outside of this round. And the way he treated Majungasaurus, whereas Spinosaurus was classy in victory, took out Utahraptor, walked away. Giganotosaurus feasted upon the carcass of Majungasaurus. He is bringing that Carcharo rage into this matchup. But he's fighting for the first time ever. We had a non-dinosaur. We have Deinosuchus, the dino killer. And Deinosuchus dispatched a game opponent in Tarbosaurus, a tyrannosaurid, cousin of T-Rex, the reigning chomp, trying to carry the legacy, and was beat down soundly by Deinosuchus. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on these two epic beasts brawling.
For me, this is held on land, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to play devil's advocate, because there has been research done on Deinosuchus saying it could death roll. And as someone who has seen that in person and has kind of felt the end of it, not firsthand, of course, it's not something you want to mess with.
The alligator world.
Exactly. I just fed some last weekend. I mean, and of course the ones I'm used to working with are, not 40 feet long, more so like a tenth of that. But even at that young age, alligators at a young age are actually born to do the death roll. And so that's a big thing, and that's a big contender. If Deinosuchus can't play his cards right, and gets up on Giganotosaurus on its leg or something like that, whip it over, it could just disemboggle Giganotosaurus to the point of either it gets distracted and just becomes weak, or it just flat out kills the animal. I mean, there's a very big possibility of that happening, even regardless of the size of Giganotosaurus.
And we have, you mentioned size, we've got our Deinosuchus coming in at 5 tons, and we have our Giganotosaurus coming in at 7 tons. Giganotosaurus has the weight and he's got the bipedal speed. So on paper, Deinosuchus was a great matchup for Torvosaurus. Giganotosaurus is at next level, and we just talked about weight with Spinosaurus. And Giganotosaurus, I don't think is as fast as Torvosaurus or as nimble, but Deinosuchus played the role really well. He slithered out, Torvosaurus circled him, took a few feints, and then thought he had an opening, only to have his legs smacked by that giant tail. And once he stumbled, he twisted back around and grabbed him with his mouth, and then just death rolled him and held on for the victory. It was an impressive feat by Deinosuchus.
One more thing, just want to add in there is that crocodilians, even regardless of size, saltwater crocs are super, super agile. They're on their toes all the time. That animal has reflexes like none other. That's why it has pressure sensors at the front of its skull, so that animal can just literally turn and snap at its prey at any moment. It's agile. Of course, some can say that, okay, of course, we're not dealing with 5-ton giant crocodiles today. So, but if we were to use an alligator biomechanically, put that input into a big giant croc like Deinosuchus, Deinosuchus is the king of all agility-ness in the sense that I could just move on a dime. Where Giganotosaurus, as you mentioned before, it's heavy, it's not as fast. Again, I really didn't see Deinosuchus having a fair shot this season, but I think now looking at the stats, and hopefully the fans agree with this, I think Deinosuchus actually has a very much big chance, regardless of the Jurassic series. But
I don't know. I'm still rooting for my boy, and I think with his large jaws, those big teeth, and his sharp claws, and in this case, I think the bipedal nature is going to help a little bit. I think Giga has the skill set to be able to take down a Deinosuchus, and in this case, once again, the behavioral memory of how to deal with large crocodilians, because it existed at around the same time as, no, it's slightly younger than Sarcosuchus, but there may have been crocodilians in its environment that were similar. So it has some of that memory. And in this case, Giganotosaurus is going to act differently than a Tyrannosaur, which is what Deinosuchus is used to. So this is another interesting matchup that while I, want to root for my boy, and I believe Giga can take it all the way, it's difficult to say for sure. It's definitely going to be a tough fight. And I see a close vote for these two beasts.
I hope it's close.
I'm super excited to watch it as well, and I do hope it's close. I really do, because these two contestants, it's amazing just to think about a giant croc squaring off. It's absolutely awesome. And almost 10% of crocodile and alligator attacks happen on land. So folks that say they don't actually come out of the water and kill, they come out of the water and kill. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to see the vote. And we'll be back in a few days. We'll know by Monday who won this epic championship. Now, the other side of the bracket has the herbivore division. And
our not so gentle giants.
Yeah, not so gentle giants. I love that tagline. I'm going to steal it. I'll give you credit. And Diplodocus. I'm a homer. I love sauropods. I made Diplodocus #1 seed. Diplodocus advanced easily, absolutely destroying Edmontosaurus. Talk about it in a favorable draw. A one-hitter quitter. Punched him in the face with his tail. Game, set, match. Diplodocus finds himself going up against another tail specialist in Stegosaurus, the #5 seed. And Stegosaurus is looking pretty strong. Took out the #4 seed, which was the mastodon, Mammoth americanum. Shocked everyone because of the big brain, large tusks, massive weight. But he got a headshot, spike through the head. That'll do anyone except Homelander in, apparently. So now, as we move forward, Stegosaurus, tail specialist, Diplodocus, world's best tail specialist, squaring off. Weight-wise, Diplodocus has pushed 10 tons. Stegosaurus is going up around 5 tons. So Stegosaurus is giving up half the mass. What do y'all think?
So I think of this because I am heavily rooting Diplodocus on this.
So weight-wise, our Diplodocus is 10 tons. He had to cut weight to make it. Our Stegosaurus came in buff at 8 tons. A big beast. Thought?
Ooh. So I still envision this as a boss battle. You're at the end of the video game, and you come up against the big boss, Diplodocus. Now, the boss battle, you're gonna have to take out a lot of damage because it's big. I mean, Diplodocus is big. So one tail strike to that Diplodocus isn't gonna kill it. You're gonna have that Stegosaurus is really going to have to try. And who knows, after how much energy does it actually take to swing that tail 40 miles per hour into the side of a Diplodocus and then actually have it regain from that.
And
so that's something
head is above the fray. Stego's not getting a headshot. He's gonna have to chop the tree down.
Exactly. So energy wise, Diplodocus, I think, has it.
Sauropod specials. I should tell you all, Colin is studying a gorgeous Apatosaurus, almost complete skeleton of the vertebral column. Incredible. So Colin's got some insider knowledge on the Diplodocidae.
Yeah, I think Aiden has the right idea, and I was going to say something very similar in terms of, if it becomes a war of attrition, right? Diplodocus can in this case hammer it out because it can take a lot more hits than maybe Stegosaurus can dish out, unless Stegosaurus is ultimate sniper over here, right? So Diplodocus will just have the ability with its mass to keep going, even if it takes 3, 4, 5 hits from those Thagomisers. And then all Diplodocus has to do is if it gets its body into position, right, it doesn't even have to rear up. It can maybe just try to sideswipe and slam Stegosaurus onto the ground. And then from there, it just crushes it with its feet, not even having to rear up. So it does favorably look like Diplodocus. And because these two animals did live together, and in this case, both of them were probably eating plants close to the ground, I wouldn't be surprised if occasionally they did fight or maybe had a slight tussle. And I think when it came down to it in that environment, yes, we're talking about currently a Diplodocus that's smaller than maybe adult ones in the Morrison at the time. I think it still would have gone to Diplodocus. Stegosaurus would not have messed with that larger animal. It would have just walked away and said, I'll go eat elsewhere.
I'm likening it to when a teenage elephant shows up and decides that rhino is going to give up that patch on the water. And even though the rhino may be an adult, it's going to say, you know what? I just don't need this. It's not going to be easy.
And so, they actually showed a scene very much like that in Walking with Beasts with the Dinotherium. So what you just described has what we've seen in the media and as you said, happens in real life on the African savanna, which the Morrison would have been very similar to.
And I've excavated from the Dry Mesa Dinosaur Quarry a Diplodocus and Stegosaurus parts. So they were in the same quarry. So I'm super excited to watch this throwdown. The other side of the bracket on the herbivore side is number 2 Triceratops against number 3 Ankylosaurus.
Oh,
I don't even know where to begin on this ultimate battle.
This is going to be a tough one, and I can bet money on it. It's going to be close. It's going to be so close. It's going to be a battle of the people who are, 1, very original, or 2, just know Triceratops, versus the really hardcore paleo fans who know the power of the Ankylosaur and Nodosaur family with all the new, overall just Nodosaur and Ankylosaur discoveries that have been coming out. We're starting to see how powerful these animals are with each new specimen and every new species that's described.
And how they got here, Triceratops literally ran through Therizinosaurus, charged, and just took him out. Let's look at the size of our Triceratops. He tipped the scales at Our Triceratops is weighing in at 10 tons max.
That's a big boy.
And the Ankylosaurus is weighing in at 10 tons. And when Triceratops plowed through Therizinosaurus, went about his day, Ankylosaurus completely destroyed Megatherium. Broke its leg, bashed its head in. Unbelievably powerful beast. So this is
an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you have Untouchable versus Blob. If you're an X-Men fan,
I was gonna say, yeah. Well, Megatherium didn't have a giant shield that's covering half of its body, so yeah. It's gonna, unless, again, as I said in the last kind of post-fight commentary, unless the Triceratops works its brow horns underneath the animal, not necessarily in a charging fashion, but just strategically decides to flip Ankylosaurus over and go for the underside. It could also just play on more of a defensive role, where it could actually pull off something like that and just end off Ankylosaurus there and then. But at the same time, Ankylosaurus has a pretty, hefty club on his tail, and on top of spikes and bony osteoderms going down all the way from the tip of its head all the way down to its tail. So it's basically like a battering ram, a small little battering ram up against a literal tank.
It's a very difficult fight indeed. I think of the 4 matches, this one is going to be the closest. And Aiden gave me the idea. So Ankylosaurus in this case is the underminer. I am always beneath you, but none of you are beneath me. And I think Ankylosaurus with the defense is going to take it versus the offensive Triceratops.
So you're saying defense wins championships is what I'm hearing here.
I think a good defense is sometimes the best offense. I mean, right? If you can outlast your opponent and then take your defenses and suddenly put them on the offensive when the other team has nothing left to put forward, right? You've outlasted them and then you can take them out.
That's, in looking at it, the Ankylosaurus is so low to the ground, it takes out the 2 most powerful weapons of the Triceratops are not even coming into play in this matchup. It makes Triceratops a single-horned face in this battle. Now, Triceratops has a massively powerful bite with that beak, but what is he going to bite on an Ankylosaurus? The thing is armored eyelids. There's no weak point. It's incredible.
In essence, if Ankylosaurus gets past the head of Triceratops, Triceratops has lost the battle because he's got nothing behind that head.
Triceratops' skull, though, might take a couple shots from that tail. That jewel horn is massive. The whole frill is full of armor. The trike's frill is solid throughout. His cervicals are carrying that head. Aiden, we've talked in the past on the mobility the Triceratops has, but the Ankylosaurus's horizontal spikes make it so dangerous to try and flip it. But
are we talking Jensen-sized specimens of skulls for Triceratops?
Yeah, perhaps.
So, but this is literally a battle of, it's literally flip a coin, heads or tails.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
It's exactly what it is.
Genius. I'm going to go with that. That's my promo right there.
Wait,
there you go.
I got it here somewhere. I know I have a coin. No.
You know what? But I'm not going to pick who's going to win this. I'm not going to pick because I think the people are going to have a very hard time voting. It's going to be very hard to decide. And I think regardless of the outcome, everyone's just going to be happy.
Yes. Because either way, they're both classics. They're both icons. And so Stegosaurus. If Stegosaurus advances, in my mind, Stegosaurus is this old prize fighter who's come off the shelf for one more battle. But Triceratops and Ankylosaurus, they're in their prime. They're out there, and they've had the opportunity to have met at watering holes in their day as well. They coexisted. So it is likely that this happened in real life. These 2 animals faced one another over plants or water or just a desirable sunny, shady spot.
Yeah, these two herbivore matchups are interesting because they actually may have happened. So it'll be interesting to see what the public, along with us, thinks would have happened back then. Because whatever ends up happening, whoever our winners are, then we get a matchup of two animals that haven't seen each other and are fighting for the first time. And who knows how that's going to go down. But story for another time.
Yeah, I don't want to look ahead, but yes, no matter who comes out of these, the matchups are incredible. From here on out, we only have dynamic encounters. Well, I want to thank both of you so much for coming on the show and chatting about the pre-fight round 2. I'm super excited to see how it rolls out over the next couple of days when we see the lower seeds battle it out and then the big top seeds. So Monday, we'll get back at it and find out what we have going in to the final rounds. I'm Dr. Brian Curtice with Fossil Crates.
And I'm Colin Boisvert.
And I'm Aiden Rouse.
And we all say thank you kindly. Adios.
Adios.
Peace.